Dear participants, good morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first We by Social EU lunchtime talk on professional integration. We are happy to see so many of you present today. We had over 160 registrations, so we are really glad that socially responsible public procurement is creating a lot of interest. First off, let me remind you a little bit how things will work today with this first talk. So all the participants will take part via web streaming. Only the speakers' mics and videos are switched on. But you can still interact by asking your questions through Slido. So you can see the code on the screen, and we will have time for a short Q&A at the end of the talk. Today's agenda will be quite straightforward. After this short introduction, we will dive into the discussion with the speakers, and as I said, we will have a short Q&A session. Before we dig into the event, I will just ask you to post your questions in Slido throughout the whole event, because we will not have a lot of time for the Q&A, so we want to have your questions ready to go at the end of the event. And please identify yourself when you're posting a question on Slido. A few words maybe on the objective of today's event. As many of you will know, the Commission recently published its new Buying Social Guide. It's a guide on integrating social considerations in public procurement, and it provides concrete indications to public buyers on how to achieve social impact through the whole procurement procedure. The guide is structured around the procurement process, but also aims to cover as many social objectives as possible. And professional integration is probably one of the most commonly pursued by public buyers. The indications we are providing in the guide draw from practices of many authorities across the EU, and these are the authorities who successfully created jobs for the long-term unemployed, disadvantaged persons, and persons with disabilities. So today we will discuss two of these examples of inspiring good practices from two very experienced administrations in Sweden and in France. And without further ado, I will introduce our distinguished speakers for today. We have Patrick Amofa, a project manager at the National Agency for Public Procurement in Sweden. Patrick is a sustainability specialist, and he has extensive experience in employment issues. He's worked on a European Social Fund-funded transnational project on social innovation and employment through public procurement, which led to the creation of the practice that we are going to discuss today, which is the national model in Sweden for the use of employment clauses in public tenders. And then we also have Caroline Chalamont. She's a social clauses facilitator from the Communauté d'agglomération du Grand Besançon Métropole in France. And she's in charge of several aspects of facilitating the implementation of social clauses in public tenders. She's been doing this job for 14 years, so she has a lot of experience. And she's also experienced in awareness-raising activities for public buyers. So let's dive into today's discussion, and I will start by asking a question to Patrick. So can you tell us a bit more about the Swedish model on employment clauses, and what led you to decide to develop a model where you're trying to address any specific bottlenecks? Have you provided specific guidance for buyers that are involved?
Anna, thank you very much for having me. Yes, of course, there were some few problems or issues that led to Sweden to develop the national model. You can remember that in 14, 15, and 16, there was a migration crisis in the whole of Europe. And in Sweden, we received about 160,000 new migrants in Sweden. It was difficult for Sweden to help all the people to enter the labor market. So we were trying to find new ways, innovative ways to help our new citizens to get jobs. So we identified that procurement is one of the ways or instrument that we can use. Already in Sweden, we have some few cities and municipalities who have experience in doing this. So we got funding from the EU, ESF fund to develop together with Finland and these municipalities and cities a national model. This is a step-by-step guide to both the buyers and the purchasers, but also those who are working with the job matching services. So it means that we have provided this guidance where we give the advice in terms of the planning process when you are starting to plan your procurement, but also when you're putting the procurement together. That is that phase, and also after you've done the procurement, how to do the matching and find the individuals to the procurement, but also how to follow up the procurement. So this is like to get also a uniform way of doing this in Sweden. That is why how come we thought that the national model would be very relevant. We did this and provided also we thought that decision makers, politicians at the national level, but also politicians at the regional and local level are important. We also have advice and guidance for them. And those who are doing the procurement, there are also guidance for them. And then also job matching services. Plus that we have also the suppliers, the companies who are going to receive the people. They also have guidance to know how to go about this. We have templates, we have checklists, we have a lot of information on our website that we can use. We are out there spreading the information on conferences, workshops, and all that. So we thought that it was very important to get a comprehensive support, how you can use procurement to create employment for marginalized people, youth, immigrants, people with disabilities, and long-term unemployed people. Those that are target group that we use in Sweden.
Thank you, Patrick. And since you mentioned all the different stakeholders that are involved in the process, how did the suppliers react to the introduction of this model? Did it take a big effort for the market to adapt to this new model?
Of course, there were some challenges. In any case, anytime you are going to implement a new thing in a public procurement, that's going to put some demand on the suppliers. There is a kind of uncertainty how they are going to fulfill it and all that. So we had some challenges, but we tried to do a lot of consultation on the national level and local level. We did the regional dialogues. So we traveled throughout the country to meet both buyers and suppliers to discuss about what we are thinking and how this works and all that. On the national level, the private enterprise associations, they were very much against this. But on the local level, when the cities and the municipalities start to put it in their procurement, and they know that they can get new employees and they can also help to solve the local needs of the people, it's a goodwill for them. So it's very positive on the local level when you meet the suppliers one-on-one. But the association level, on the national level, it's kind of it's their duty, so they try to kind of work against this. But in total, we see that it's been positively received now.
Thank you. That's very encouraging. I think one of the most interesting aspects of this model is also that you have set up a tool to calculate the socioeconomic benefits and costs of using the model itself. I was wondering if how this tool is used actually. Can public buyers use it to plan and prepare the tender? Can they use it, for example, to verify the impact of the clauses and calculating a bit the costs?
Yes, in putting any clause in procurement, procurement is about how to use public funds to provide the needs and services for the citizens. So you always have to be cautious about any clause that you put, and the impact is going to be expensive or not, and what are the socioeconomic benefits. So whilst we are doing this, developing this national model, we thought of trying to answer about the economic impact of this. So we try to put this, develop this calculations model, and then based on that one, you fill in, we decided to use an example from one of the cities, Helsingborg. Then you fill in the people that the target group that you are going to use, and also how many months or how long the person has been unemployed, how old is the person, and any administrative cost that they need to be able to put this. And then at the end of the day, you get a result from this model about the cost and the benefits of using this clause in your procurement. And we saw that we tried to divide it into different groups or actors. What are the benefits for the individual when they get employment? What are the benefits for the municipality? What are the benefits for the region or the benefits for the state and also the company and the society as a whole? So we saw that most of them, the actors, will get some benefit in it. In total, it's actually higher benefits for the society as a whole. We have to make some assumptions because you cannot always calculate all the things involved when you're creating employment. Positive things like health issues, health improvement for the individual, we cannot get it into monetary terms in this, but there are also some dynamic negative issues that may occur that we cannot either put into this. So in total, we saw that there are some benefits for everyone. This will also help them to prepare when deciding to put in these clauses. Is it going to be beneficial or not? Once they use this calculations model, then they can decide that we go for this target group or not. They can also make this a discussion when they meet the suppliers for dialogue. So they all will know that these are the benefits or the costs involved, and it will make the procurement be like a more decent way if everybody agrees in terms of the dialogue and all that. But we see that it's really very positive, the results that you can get for the society as a whole. But most of them, of course, will get their benefits. That's what we have seen in terms of looking at the example that we use from Helsingborg. But this calculations model is also there on our website, and everybody, all the municipalities and the authorities in Sweden, if they want to use it and try to see the benefits, they can also use it if they have the data and the statistics. It's very exciting.
Thank you. I think it's very interesting because despite as you mentioned, there are some benefits that cannot be calculated, probably, especially the benefits for the individual in the long run. But it's probably very reassuring for many of the actors involved that this tool exists and that you can somehow monitor, let's say, the impact of these clauses. Let's jump over quickly to Caroline. I would like you to explain, if you can, what is the role of a social clauses facilitator in France, because it's not something that's very common in other EU member states. Who do facilitators help, and how do they help?
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Yeah, the facilitator is a resource person in charge of implementing social clauses in France. We are about nearly 500 facilitators in France, and we are part of national networks led by the national association called Alliance Ville Emploi. We work on a specific geographical area and are the main link between contracting authorities, which can be local authorities, social housing, state operators, or private operators. And we do the link between the contracting authorities, enterprises, public employment service, and different structures for professional inclusion through work. So we both act upstream and downstream of the public market. The facilitator is directly related to contracting authority before the publication of the public market, and we help them to identify and analyze the opportunities to integrate this kind of social clauses, which can be a criteria for awarding public markets or a performance condition, or at least also we can have some reserve market for disabled employees or social company. Then we can advise companies which bid for public contracts to help them for the different possibilities of recruitment. And then we monitor and assess compliance of the device thanks to a common computer software we have. So in most cases, our posts are also co-financed by the European Social Fund, so which can be quite interesting possibilities and for other members of the European Union.
Thank you very much, Caroline. I was wondering what kind of disadvantaged groups or workers do the tenders you work on normally target. And you were mentioning also this this sort of matching process that you're in charge of between the public authority, the worker, and the employer. How do you make sure that this matching really happens successfully?
Okay, so the target audience is indicated in the tender specifications. So we can have long-term job seekers, more than 12 or 24 months without unemployment, minimum social benefits, young people under 26 who have been out of the education system for at least 6 months, disabled employees, job seekers over 50 years old, people in need who works within inclusion structure via economic activity. In some cases, we can also have job seekers living in priority districts. But as I told you just before, the facilitator has to check whether the workers corresponds with this criteria. And then we can also directly in charge of the recruitment process for the companies which bid for public contract, or we can direct enterprises to this kind of these social inclusion enterprises and really have a role to monitor, to assess it, to control the obligation which is mentioned in the public contract. Or we offer a kind of guarantee for the contracting authority that the social clauses is well implemented.
Thank you. I was wondering, because public procurement contracts normally do not last more than a certain number of years. And you seem to serve, you try to serve different types of and groups of workers with, which are disadvantaged in many different ways. So I was wondering if the public tenders you work with normally take into account aspects which are related to the length of the employment for these disadvantaged workers, or also their skills and training and long-term possibilities also to better integrate themselves in the job market.
Yeah, the quality of vocational integration is an important point of the implementation of social clauses. You have to know that social clauses have aims at creating paths to professional integration, which can of course include training. In this case, we work in contact with training organization. As I told you, for some public market, we can add criteria on the base, we can add a weighting criteria linked to the quality of professional inclusions. For instance, enterprises can be expected to explain their methodology about professional and social support and employee training. That means we can advantage a company which makes the choice to offer a training for the workers. In this case, we will work with all the public service employment, and we will identify the different unemployed people who can be interested by this job, and make all the job with the training organization to organize all the training sessions. It means that the social social clauses can be an opportunity. You can have just an amount of working hours to do, and then it can enable unemployed people to find a long-term job. And for the moment, we have a lot of, we face a labor shortage in construction sector. So in many cases in France, we work now for really long-term integration of workers. We have many offers to suppliers in this case.
Thank you very much, Caroline. This is extremely interesting, and I think the point of not just creating a job opportunity in the moment, but also trying to make sure that somehow this is also a more long-term opportunity for the worker involved is really the point of these standards. Let me go back for a question on the impact of the Swedish model to Patrick. Did you notice any price increase in the tenders where the model was applied? And in this case, was the tool useful also to understand the costs and the burdens and benefits for the public administrations involved?
Yeah, we encourage very much that when putting these employment clauses, it's important to have a dialogue with the market, the suppliers and the companies involved. So when you apply the calculations model, then you can see, you can have the information that you get from the resource as the dialogue subject. The experience that we have seen in Sweden is that the price of the contract would have
I believe the connection is not the most stable, unfortunately.
Do you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. I'm sorry, Patrick, but I think
good.
we lost the most important part of your reply.
Is it okay? Okay, I can repeat it.
Thank you.
I was just trying to explain that we have not done any extensive study in terms of if the prices will be higher or not, but the experiences that we have gathered, both from the cities and the municipalities who have applied employment clauses in their contracts, nobody have said that the contract price per se increases. But when they use the calculations model that we have, they can have information to discuss with the suppliers and the companies. We encourage market dialogue very much before you put these clauses. And this will be a tool for them to discuss about how much administrative cost it can be. For instance, they might need to employ a mentor at the supplier side to help the new migrants or the youth or the people with disability to enter that workplace in a good way. That can cost them a little bit, but in total, based on the productivity that they will produce and all that, it's not a major cost. That's what we have seen. We can also say that there are other benefits and impacts that you cannot even measure. For instance, that the national model promotes gender equality depending on which sector they are going to work. If it's a construction sector, we encourage that you can employ or put the clause that they can take more women, since it's less women working on the construction sector. If it's the social or health sector, there's more women, you want to encourage more men, you can put the clause in such a way that more men can also come there. So in this way, you promote gender equality. If you use the model, you can also promote cooperation with social enterprises. For instance, if you do reserve contracts by promoting employment, and also cooperation from municipalities and cities by letting the social enterprises take part in public procurement. So there are a lot of benefits that you cannot calculate. And since we have not been able to identify that the prices of the contract will go up, then we don't have any evidence to say that based on what we know already in Sweden now. But again, we have not done any scientific research about this, so we cannot say that it's a scientific base. But it's a good experience from many organizations who have worked with this that we have gathered this argument from.
Thank you very much. It's great to learn that, and I guess if no one has complained so far about the price increase, it's probably a very clear signal that the experience is positive. And of course, just to highlight that, I think indeed probably the market engagement phase really helps from this point of view, because you can sort of talk with the market and prepare it in advance for what's coming in the tender. Going back to Caroline, I also want to ask you more or less the same type of question. Can you tell us a bit about the impact of the facilitators? And in your case, since facilitators are very strongly linked to local communities, can you tell us a bit about the benefits that they have generated for the local communities, and whether you have also noticed any specific costs or burdens for the different stakeholders that are involved?
As Patrick said, I will also say that we did not notice any cost or any burden. Social clauses in France have been implementing since the last 80s, driven by local authorities. And our job is to create a very significant relations based on trust. So we have decided to adopt a win-win approach, which takes into account the political interest, economic benefit, and social impact. So what I can tell you just now is there is strongly a political interest, because local authority can play a major role to promote vocational integration. It's in case for all the public and private sector. For the economic benefit, as I told you, we have to face a very strong labor shortage. So all these social clauses can offer companies a tailor-made assistance to recruit their workers. So we can offer for their needs to find new workers. And for the social impact, I can tell you that more than 50% of the workers who have benefited from social clauses are still working after 6 months, because after that, we are all related to a network. And the network is really important in the key parts of the success of the implementation of social clauses. We are linked together. We make the link with the contracting authority, with the enterprises, with the unemployed people. And this is the link which make it a success story.
Thank you. I would like to ask a couple of questions to both of you, and I think this aspect that you touched upon, Caroline, on political leadership and how these clauses are actually good for local politicians, and is something I want to come back to a bit later on. And I wanted to touch upon something that that Patrick mentioned before, that sometimes you don't realize how many additional benefits are generated by these sort of practices on top of creating the jobs that they are meant to create. And I wanted to ask both of you if these practices also helped in a way with the use of green and circular procurement requirements in tenders, Do you have any examples or any news of procurements tackling both these employment aspects and also green aspects?
I can start. There is we realize in Sweden that there is a major potential in procurement in terms of meeting national and local objectives. It can be reducing climate impact. It can be promoting gender equality. It can be creating employment for marginalized groups. So this potential has not been identified for many people, but we can see that a lot more cities and municipalities and politicians are coming to this, realize that they can do more. So this is positive. When we are talking about building back better after the pandemic, this is where we think that is a way to go, that you can use both social clauses and also environmental clauses. In this way, you can win both positive impact for the nature and for people. We have one city in Sweden that tried to find out how they can reduce their energy consumption by also saving, bringing in a climate impact. And they did a study about all their buildings and construction that they have and see how best they can improve this. And in doing this, they identified that they have three possible benefits. They can reduce cost of energy consumption, they can create new employment for marginalized people, and they can also reduce climate impact. So there's really, really positive things about this in terms of the building and construction sector and also major infrastructure projects. So this, I would like to encourage local politicians, national politicians to take this advantage of procurement. They can really, really create a big impact for everyone involved.
Well, as far as France is concerned, I will say the same. I will say that social clauses really help to develop the use of green procurements. In France, we have the opportunity to adopt what we call a SPACER. It's called a schema. It's a scheme to promote green and social procurements. It's a legal. It's a legal obligation for all the local authorities, which have 100 million annual expenditure. They have to adopt this kind of scheme, which take into consideration the goal of sustainable development. But we have noticed that a lot of local authorities, which have not compelled to adopt this kind of scheme, make it. So this is the first aspect. And then we have in France several structures for professional inclusion to work, which are really involved in ecological activities, such as bio-based material, recycling and reuse material, or production of washable diapers, production of organic fruit juices. So we can make the link between the needs of the local authority and the service which can be brought by all these structures. For instance, for the Ville de Besançon, we've made a special public market for the production of washable diapers, for instance, which are made by unemployed people and in a kind of ecological way. So we definitely have the tools to tackle both social and green issues in public procurement, definitely.
Thank you, Caroline. And since you mentioned these schemes at local level, I suppose political backing for initiatives in the field of socially responsible procurement is extremely important. What do you think? And this is a question for both of you. What do you think are the implications of the examples that you have presented on the governance of procurement? And also, based on your experience, to what extent is political leadership key to make sure that public buyers actually use these kind of tools? Patrick, you want to go first?
Yes, yeah, sure. I can start. I can say that is extremely important. When we look at the national model that we develop in Sweden, the first part, the most important part that we have said is that the politicians, the local politicians and the national politicians have to make a decision and put it in the overall policy of the city or the municipality, that here we want to use our procurement to create employment or to make social impact and to meet other objectives. It's very important because just the procurer himself or herself cannot do this alone without getting the support from the top management or the politicians, because it involves many departments in the city. So if the top management have not decided, it will be a big work task for a procurer to go to all these departments and tell them that I would like to do this, can you help me? But when the top management or the politicians decide and they make a decision for all the organization, then it's easier for all the departments involved to cooperate together. In developing the national model in Sweden, we really got support from the government on the national level. And we also got support from our top management in the National Procurement Agency. Those things, for me as a project manager and a leader to develop this, was very crucial. Because even when we meet, we have the dialogue, both the local and the national level, you meet the private sector organizations. These are very big people who really have major impact. If they don't like what you're doing, you're not going to succeed. So even for me, in this level, the support from the politicians, the government, and from my top management where I work was very crucial. And in the same way, it's very important that top management in the city level and the politicians at the local level, it's very important for them to be successful, to use their procurement to meet a local or national objective. It can be employment, but it can be a gender issue. It can also be climate issue. All these things are like strategic objectives that they can use the public money in procurement to solve. It will be a double win if they dare. They need kind of they have to dare. It's a daring issue also, even for politicians and for the top management. They have to have some kind of courage to be able to go ahead to do this. So I, even if there's any politicians listening to me now, I think that it's all win-win-win, but they have to take the daring and the courage to give the assignment and the task to the officers before this can work.
I will say the same for France. This device cannot be really good implemented if you don't have a high-level political commitment at first. For the local authority, in the history of social clause in France, it was really a policy driven by local authority. Now we have the state, which is also encouraging all the services to make it possible. And now we have the social clauses. We have really a lot of social clauses for a lot of operations. But the basis, as Patrick told, said it, that we really need a high-level political commitment. The first, because this is a politician who are going to develop a long-term strategy, and all the ingredients for the good receipt, I would say, it's a level of political commitment. Then you have to identify the structure and the human and financial resource necessary to carry out this policy. You have to, I think, to have a really step-by-step approach, a pragmatic approach, effective communication, and then you should have the power to measure effective implementations. For me, it's all the ingredients you need to make it a success story.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting and very inspirational, I think, for many people in our audience. Speaking of which, it's now time for our short Q&A. Have we received any questions? And let's see that.
So, first question. Did you evaluate the success of the inclusion of social clauses in the call for tenders? For example, by way of competition achieved or through questionnaires sent after, and especially after the contract has been awarded? Maybe we can start with Patrick.
Yeah, for my organization, we are like national level, we provide the support for the municipalities and the cities to do this. And at the moment, we don't have a national database for this, but each municipality or city that puts this clause, they can evaluate afterwards. What we have now is to use this calculations model. Then when you gather your statistics and data from the particular procurement, then you can put it in this model, and then immediately you see the results that you can do. But what you are suggesting is also good. It's a way of doing evaluating. You can send like kind of questionnaire to individuals who got the work, but also to both suppliers and buyers to find out if there are ways to improve or not. So questionnaire is good. There are different methods that you can use to evaluate also. And so that is what I can say from my side.
As far as I'm concerned, as I told you, you have different kinds of social clauses which can be implemented. So first we have the social clauses are the conditions of the public market. In this case, enterprises which bid for a public contract have to reserve working hours to unemployed people. And these hours are indicated in the tenders, and the social clause is compulsory, and any failure can be subject to financial penalty. And the facilitator has to control, to help the enterprises, and then to control and to see if these hours are done or not. Otherwise, the contracting authority can make the choice to adopt the penalty which is indicated in the tenders. You can also have, I tell you, employment as a criteria for awarding public market. And in this case, the facilitator can help the contracting authority to note the questionnaire, and this weighting criteria has to be significant enough to make sense. Say about maybe 10%. And then we can also add points for a company which will make the choice to go furthermore to offer training or professional support to unemployed people. In this case, we can make it possible.
I can also add that contract performance conditions is one of the most important clauses that we put in Sweden. It means that the people will work when the supplier is supplying the contract or doing something that is related to supplying that particular contract. We advise more that, but like Caroline is saying, there are different ways of putting these social clauses also.
Thank you. Another question, are there any sectors where this integration has been particularly successful? Have you also been able to integrate persons in the industrial clinic sector and private security sectors? What have been some of the challenges?
I can start also. I think that in terms of which sector, the possibilities is a lot. We don't even have any sector that we don't think is not possible. It's really, anytime you are doing a procurement that's going to take more than 5-10 people or more, then you have the possibility to put this social clause. So it can be construction, in Sweden, we have experience within construction, within also cleaning, within waste management, within, we have something called fruit delivery to workers. In each offices, they supply fruit. And so if you win a contract by supplying fruit to the people working in the city, while supplying these fruit, bananas and apples and all that, you can also employ people. So it's in the food sector, in catering sector, in the hotel. I mean, there's no limit. You have to study each contract and see the possibilities when you're doing also the market dialogue and how big the contract is and how long also the contract is. If it's just maybe 6 months, maybe it's very short. If you're going to take only, you need one person or two to do this contract, it's maybe too small. So it's a lot of factors that you take into consideration, but we do not limit that. It's only special sectors that you can put the clauses. The possibility is big.
I would say the same. All public procurement can be involved when they generate working hours. So we have experience in construction sector, waste sector, service cleaning sector, transport sector, and intellectual services. I would say industrial cleaning, why not? And private security, I had also public market just for security, and then we just have to do the matching process between the unemployed people and the companies. But yeah, it's still possible. The challenge is when you faced for the private security sector, the unemployed people, they have a kind of inquiry, a moral inquiry. So if you have made some mistakes, then it can be difficult for you to be hired in this sector. So they are going to control what you have done, what the mistakes you've done when you were young, or things like this. It's a moral inquiry, I would say, which can be quite a little bit difficult to find the right people for this sector.
Thank you very much, Caroline and Patrick. Thank you for contributing today. I think it was a very interesting discussion, and I also want to thank the audience. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and you found it useful. Just a few closing words from my side. As I was saying, this is the first event in a series that we are launching on socially responsible public procurement. The next We Buy Social EU talk will be on the 10th of December, and it will be about human rights due diligence in public procurement. But we also have a number of events foreseen from here until June. The link for the registration for the next talk will be sent via email. I also wanted to remind you that we have a series of webinars on innovation procurement. The next one will take place on the 16th of November, and it will be about linking with the innovation ecosystems. We also have two other webinars on innovation in early 2022 and in spring of 2022. I also wanted to mention we have two LinkedIn groups now. One is on innovation procurement, and it's called Agents of Innovation Procurement, and another one on socially responsible procurement, which is called Actors for Social Impact Procurement. I would invite anyone who connected today to join them. These are really spaces for you to discuss topics related to innovation and socially responsible procurement. So we created them, but they are not owned by the Commission, let's say. And finally, I wanted to mention also our wonderful team working on strategic public procurement, my colleagues Carmen, Anne-Christine, Samira, Ivo, Laura, Anita, and Marie, and Joanna, who did some of the technical work today. And last but not least, we would ask you to describe in one word today's event, so that we can see your impressions live on Slido. And maybe just to let you know that the unanswered questions we will try to address in the LinkedIn groups. So I see some words already coming in: informative, inspirational, very interesting. Okay. I think we can close it here. So again, thank you very much, and we'll see you in December. Have a nice day.